What's up, EXO team? This is Carlos Valdez. Wanted to make a really quick video tonight talking about firmware updates on the Blackhawk 2 Pro. So, I want to just share what happened to me or my experience. There's been a lot of talk about the newest firmware update that has just come out few days ago, maybe a week ago, and some users have performed the update. And I've talked to and seen all kinds of comments and talked to some folks about some potential issues that they've had after doing the firmware update. And I want to talk tonight about something that happened to me and the way that I resolved it. So, first, I'll start off by saying that there's two types of people that I generally run into in the world, and those are ones that believe if it ain't broke, don't fix it. So, maybe not a fan of performing a software update. If your drone's working perfectly and there's nothing wrong with it and there isn't a feature that you're trying to add or that you're missing that the firmware update offers, then maybe it's best for you not to do that. You just hit cancel. It's not forcing you to do the update, it's just telling you that one is available. And then there's the other type of person, which I consider myself. I like to do the firmware update. I believe that firmware updates are to make improvements based off suggestions and tests. And I do believe that installing them is important and staying up to date is important. Is it potential that you might have issues? Absolutely. So I'll generally wait a couple days. I won't do it the first day or even the first week, but I will do them. And in this case, I did the firmware update both to the controller and the aircraft probably a little earlier than I normally do. And I'm actually glad that I did because I ran into an issue that I want to explain in case anyone else runs into this issue. So I performed the software update or turned on my drone. It said there's a firmware update available for the controller and the aircraft. Now I have flown the aircraft obviously before with no issues whatsoever. So I decided today I'll do the firmware update. I did the controller update first, completed no problem. Then I did the aircraft update, also completed no problem. Then I went and took a test flight. The first thing I noticed when I took a test flight is I got a message that I normally didn't get before, which was the gimbal is under protection. It's a yellow message that comes on the left side of the screen in the app. And it gave me that message a couple times. It did it while I was calibrating, which would make sense because you're shaking the gimbal around a little bit, right? So you tend to want to do this really slow, as to not disturb the gimbal, delicate piece of equipment. Once my calibrations were completed, I went ahead and flew the drone. I went up about 200, 250 feet in the air. And after a few minutes of flying, I noticed all of a sudden my gimbal kind of just tipped to the left. And it just kind of stayed there. And I was like, well, that's kind of odd. So obviously I brought the airplane down and landed. And I said, well, you know what? Let me do a gimbal calibration. So I went into the gimbal menu and I did a gimbal calibration. It completed normally, no problem. Restarted the aircraft, flew back up to about 200 feet, flew around a little bit, just normally, just in normal mode, and boom, gimbal fell to the left again, which was kind of odd. I'd never experienced that before. So I came down and I landed again, and this time I decided to do an advanced gimbal calibration. So in the app, you have under settings, gimbal calibration, and then below it, there's advanced, and you have advanced gimbal calibration in there. And when I went to do that, it would not complete. It would time out, and I couldn't get it to complete it no matter what I tried, restarting the controller, trying another battery, trying a different cable from the remote to the phone. No matter what I tried, it wouldn't complete the advanced gimbal calibration. So I decided as a troubleshooting step that I was going to go ahead and remove the app and reinstall it. Now, let me just say first, if you remove your Blackhawk 2 app, in other words, delete it from your phone, it will delete your flight logs. So just know that. So you need to go ahead and upload those via the cloud in the app. Under personal in the app, when you're looking at your flight logs, it gives you the option to sync your flight logs to the server. You have to be logged into your EXO account right in the app. You can create one if you don't have one. but you just can't bypass that. You have to be logged in and you can sync them. That way when you reinstall the app, they can sync back to your app and you don't lose your flight logs. So just know that you have to do that step first. But what was interesting was when I deleted my application and then I went to the App Store, and I use iPhone. I don't know if it's the same for Android, but I'm going to assume that it's exactly the same. Um, when I went to the App Store and I downloaded the new app, I noticed a different version. So there's a new version of the Blackhawk 2 application that was available in the iPhone App Store. So I downloaded it, restarted everything, and let me try my advanced gimbal calibration again. Well, the very first thing that I noticed was when I went into the app and I went into settings, where I had before normal, just gimbal calibration, and then I would go into advanced for the advanced gimbal calibration, I noticed that the normal gimbal calibration was gone. So that's definitely something that was different in the app. I no longer had the option to do a normal, just a regular gimbal calibration. It was gone. The only option that I had was advanced gimbal calibration. So I went in, did my advanced gimbal calibration, and this time it completed no problem. Much faster than it normally did it, and completed no problem. Now, I'll just back up and say prior to the firmware update that I did today, I was able to do a normal gimbal calibration as well as an advanced gimbal calibration with no issues. After the firmware update, I was no longer able to do an advanced gimbal calibration. And once I deleted the app and reinstalled the app, the only option that the app now has is advanced gimbal calibration. The normal one is now gone. But it did successfully complete an advanced gimbal calibration with no issues at all. So once I did that, went outside, did a compass calibration, popped the drone back up, flew up to about 200, 250, somewhere in that range. And this time I actually tried to duplicate the error. So I normally don't fly my drones very aggressively. I'm usually someone that likes to fly very smooth if possible. But I mean, I tried in normal mode. I threw it in sport mode. I tried, kind of moving the sticks or jerking the sticks back and forth to see if I could trigger any kind of gimbal movement that would make it fall back to the left, and it didn't. It flew just fine. So I'm going to do a couple more tests over the next couple days to confirm that 100%. And if I experience anything different, I'll update the comments on this video. But it seems to have resolved the issue. So removing and reinstalling the app after the firmware update seems to have resolved the issue. And again, I tried my best to try and duplicate it. And, 2 or 3 times prior to deleting and reinstalling the app, it was happening. I'd go up there and I'd start flying any kind of aggressively, even not even aggressively, just flying around, and the gimbal would just tip to the left. And I've read other users have had this happen, and it's possible that someone has even had their Blackhawk 2 drone replaced or sent in for repair. So I thought I would share this because maybe this is the fix, and I believe that it is, at least in my case. I think that I've resolved the issue. Again, I'm going to do some more tests over the next couple days. But after I removed and reinstalled the application, the updated version of it, it seems to have solved the issue. I no longer have the gimbal kind of just falling to the left post firmware update. So advice to you guys, if you're going to do the firmware update to the controller and the aircraft, at the same time, remove and reinstall your app. It can't hurt. Or at the very least, go into your settings on your app, and if you see that you have a gimbal calibration and also an advanced gimbal calibration, that's your tell that you're on an older version. You should only see one option to calibrate the gimbal, which is advanced gimbal calibration. So when you go into your settings, you got all your normal calibrations. You got your compass calibration, your gyro calibration, your IMU calibration, and your horizontal calibration. That's in the normal settings menu on the front page there. I'm talking on the left-hand side when you go into settings and you actually go into gimbal. There's a gimbal calibration that used to be there, and now the only thing that's there is advanced gimbal calibration. And that's how you'll know you have the newest app. Or of course you can look at the app version number. But update your app or remove and reinstall it if you're having this issue. and it hopefully will resolve it for you as it seems to have for me. The other thing that I want to talk about is I did talk to someone who, during the update for the remote on the Blackhawk 2, so there's obviously a firmware update for the remote and a firmware update for the aircraft. So when he performed the firmware update for the remote, it updates, you know, all the software within this. When you perform the software update for the aircraft, there is an FC portion, which is flight control portion, and there is a G portion, which is gimbal portion. So it does actually update gimbal software on the aircraft. So again, going back to what I said before, it would make sense that you would want an updated version of the application to go with that. But this particular user, when he went to update his remote, the remote update failed. It stopped at 99% and then failed. So once he disconnected everything, because he didn't have any other option, his remote would no longer power on. All he would get was that little icon without the ring, just that little middle icon that essentially looks like a battery with a remote. And he couldn't get it to turn on. He, did the double click thing, held it down, couldn't get it to turn on. He actually contacted EXO support, and they were going to send him a new remote. Unfortunately, though, the remote is on back order right now for a couple weeks. Very large demand for these things, so obviously parts are in shortage in some cases. I know batteries were on back order and they're now back in stock, I believe, but the remotes are now on back order. So he was sitting here grounded. So what we did was we had him. He reached out to support. They made a suggestion. He reached out to me to see if I could help. And what we did, or what he did, is he went ahead and connected everything back up. The remote, the drone, the cable, turned everything on. And then in the app, he went on the left-hand side under settings, on the left-hand side all the way to the bottom. You go into that menu and you hit version number or version, and then it tells you what version you are on the app and the remote. And he did a check for update on the remote, and lo and behold, it came up in red that there was an update available. So he was able to restart the update, and this time it completed all the way through, no problem. And his drone, his remote turned on. So he's gonna test it tomorrow, just to make sure. But there's nothing that's telling me or telling us that it's not gonna work. I mean, literally, his remote was DOA. It was dead. He could not get it to turn on at all. And after redoing or reapplying the update, it did fix that. Now the remote actually turns on. He can sync up to the drone. He gets, FPV on it and everything. So he'll do a flight test tomorrow, but there's no doubt in my mind that it's probably going to work. And obviously he'll contact EXO support and let them know that they don't need to send the new controller that has fixed it. So if you do get stuck on any portion of the update via that, be the remote or the aircraft, and it stops and you kind of think your device is rendered useless at that point, try redoing the update. At least in the case of the remote, there is a way to do that. And for this particular user, it did work. And, after being grounded for 3 or 4 days and hearing that the remote's on back order, I'm sure he was pretty bummed. So I was actually ecstatic that we were able to get it fixed. So in closing, I'll just say, guys, again, do your firmware updates. Don't be afraid to. It's your choice. If your drone's working fine and you don't want to, that's fine. If you're going to do your firmware update, though, make sure you update your app as well. Delete and reinstall the app. Or again, at minimum, check to make sure that you only have one advanced gimbal calibration available and no other kind of gimbal calibration. That's kind of what I am deeming as the tell-all of how you know that you have the most recent version of the app. And in my case, it fixed my problem. It seems definitely to have fixed my problem. I'll do some more tests, like I said, in the next couple of days to confirm that. But it definitely seems to have fixed my problem, and happy to help anyone that might need to do that. I actually have a screen recording on my phone of me performing both the aircraft update as well as the controller update. I also have a screen recording on my phone that shows you how to go, via the app screen. It's a screen recording of all of the calibrations, the horizontal, the IMU, the gyro, the compass, and happy to share that or help anyone that might be newer or might be having some issues with that. So don't hesitate to reach out to me. You can comment on this video. You can contact me on Facebook on the EXO Drone Owners page. You can post your question on the EXO Premium site. There's a community on there as well that I'm part of. Or you can reach out to me via Facebook Messenger anytime. I'm here to help, guys. I don't mind doing it. And if I can get somebody flying that is grounded or needs some help, I'm always happy to do that. So I hope this video helps someone. And if it does, please comment and share. That's how we kind of help each other with this wonderful hobby that we have. And as I always say at the end, guys, happy flying and thank you.